Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody. It's great to see that we already have 36 people online, and Pedro just joined. We're all still working from home and trying to make the best of the whole COVID-19 pandemic now. We continue to share and to support the community through these webinars, and we hope the content is to your liking so far. And today we'll be discussing low code. But before we dive into that, I want to quickly pick up with each of you the interface of this webinar if you're new to it. So on your right side, you see there's a chat window. You can actually post anything you want to say in there, even hyperlinks and things like that. So that's a nice way to start. You can ask questions. We all see them. Preferably you tell which speaker you would like to answer your question. There will be polls, and we try not to distract you too much with that. But so the first one is a very simple one. Did you hear about low code before? Yes, no, or maybe under a different label. I would say it's interesting that others also see. Like normally this would be the hands-up question to the audience. Who knows about this subject? We can't see you, so we're trying to make it interactive with these digital tools. And thank you everybody for answering it right now. I'm looking into the poll results as they're streaming in. These platforms allow us to share screens, and so I will face the full shared screen, and everybody sees everything you're doing on your side too. So here we go. Our session is about to kick off, and we're going to be talking about low codes and specifically for the financial industry, but the principles remain valid for many other industries too. So after my introduction, which will start right after this slide, we have Cris Carvalho, who's the managing director of the Global Smart Process. He'll talk for about 15 minutes about what they do and how they've been implementing low-code approach for years. After that, we have Pedro Soeiro from Ablewise, who will give us his case study of projects he has implemented using low-code at a major European bank. After that, we have Willem Lambrechts from Drebbel, who will talk about one of the big 4 Belgian banks that approach this. And then we'll do a Q&A. We'll try to make it really interactive, and I'll try to wrap it up at the very end of it. So here are our speakers. And maybe for you to bring I'd like to ask Caroline, who's the woman behind the scene making all this happen, to maybe drop the LinkedIn the LinkedIn profiles of our speakers, so people that want to look more into that, they can follow up right over there.
Great.
And then right after sharing my screen, I will drop you a little link on zero code, no code movement, which is like a step below the low code movement, and where you have tools for people with zero development experience that can already build an application. And that would be my introduction to Cris. Could you maybe, as an introduction, explain what the difference is between no code and low code? And at the same time, welcome Cris on stage. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen, so the digital board is going to be all yours again. There we go. So Cris, you have the floor now. Your mic is still muted, so you're going to have to unmute that so we can all hear you. So I can still see your mic being muted. So the sharing seems to work, but somehow I think you're going to have to come back to the main scene to make sure your microphone works. So you're going to have to do the stop sharing. Now you can put your microphone on. And as everybody sees, we're new to this, all these new ways of digital platforms helping us to create a digital experience. Cris, I still have to ask you to put your mic there. I see that we lost his connection, so he will reconnect in a second. And while we're waiting for him, I would invite everybody to take a look at the chat to see already the profiles of the people who are about to rock here on stage. At this point, we have 43 people, so we can't see you, but you can see what's happening on this side and ask us your questions and engage via the chat. I see Caroline is back, and we're now waiting.
They have some problems with the connection.
Yes, that's something we're all gonna get used to that in the next few weeks, months. The number of calls I've been in where somebody has been stalled, the internet connection was had a hiccup, or the platform has a tough time coping. So yeah. Hang in there, everybody. This session is not stopped.
No.
We're just waiting, and as you can see, we have Pedro back, and we're waiting for Cris to come back. If it takes much longer, Pedro, you have to get ready to show us your use case, because then we're just going to change the order of the presentations.
But I believe he's getting back, because I had to do the same after you shared your screen. My also went black, so
okay.
Let's wait for just some seconds, but if you want, I can start.
Okay, we'll give it a few seconds. And again, for those people who are just joining us, you can interact. And there we have our speaker.
Okay, sorry about that.
No problem at all. So
hear me?
Maybe if you want to also cut your camera, and then we're just going to start by Cris right away with your presentation.
Yes.
And at the same time, maybe go back to the question I asked earlier. How does low code actually behave towards no code? What's the difference between them?
I mean, no code is a movement that is coming up quite strong, of course, of people that with very little IT background that are trying to develop applications and trying to enter the world of applications, bringing their own ideas and programming. Low code enters a little bit more the complexity of enterprise development applications, where companies and corporate organizations can actually develop applications more complex and with a large enterprise. So that's a little bit where the difference lays. That's a little bit what I'm trying to go today. So thank you for joining for this low code digital conference. So my name is Cris Schultz Carvalho, as Ton has already mentioned. I'm over 20 years IT consulting and plus 10 years experience in working with low code, currently the managing director of Global Smart Processes. Very good. I would like to start sharing with you guys the Christmas dilemma. So this is a dilemma that a lot of organizations, like the ones where you're working on, have. So basically, we are talking about September every year. The marketing director wakes up in the morning and says, I have the fantastic solution for our Christmas campaign. And it goes on and talks with the IT director and tells her, listen, I have this fantastic idea. Can we implement this CRM so that our campaign this Christmas is going to be fantastic? And the IT director says, listen, that will take 6 to 9 months to develop.
I'm very happy, Cris, you didn't go for the stereotype, so that's much appreciated. Although we didn't reach gender balance in the panel today, we are happy that you're breaking through the stereotypes here. So please continue.
Definitely. So our IT director has a problem. It's not that she doesn't want to do what the IT director, what the marketing director wants. It's that a large of the business challenge exists these days. So there is a big gap between what business wants to implement in terms of IT solution and what IT actually has the capability to deliver and to develop. Gartner predicts that in 2021, 1 year from now, be 5 times faster on what needs to be implemented than what IT can actually deliver this. So it means that 4 out of 5 of your requests to IT will not be developed, will not be implemented. And this is a little bit what we want to change. So if you want to be a disruptive company in the market, if you want to have go-to-market fast applications, low code, we believe, can be the solution. But what is low code? What are you talking about? For those of you who still are starting on the low code, so low code is a software development approach. It's a software development platform that enables the delivery of applications, both mobile and web, in a very fast way. Why is this the case? How can you do that? It changes the paradigm. You stop having lines of codes and you start having programming using visual mode development. As the example here, you move boxes, you move arrows. So that's where you get these amazing capabilities, is that actually it allows you to develop in a visual mode. But why low code? Why should I go for low code? First of all, it's very fast and it will increase your productivity. We are not talking about fast as in, I will reduce a lot of my costs. We are talking about fast, meaning that you will implement much more than you're doing today, and you will have it much earlier than you're having today. Also, it will change at the speed of your business. As we have seen now with the current situation that we are all in, business changes very fast, and you need to have solutions that can change at the fast of weeks, not at the fast of months or years. Also, low-code solutions, the majority of platforms allow you to manage the entire life cycle of your development cycle. So normally they're coming in one fully integrated solution. So this is definitely a major asset also for the IT sector in the organization. And also, it will enable you to scale. You can scale much more when you have a solution like with low code, going from 10, 100, 1,000 to 1 million users all of a sudden.
Okay. It sounds too good to be true, huh? Why haven't we been doing this forever?
I don't know, Ton. I don't know. But yes, sure. But who says that low code is the solution? Okay, it's not just me. Okay, Gartner came out with a report recently saying that by 2024, 3/4 of large enterprises will be using low code in their development.
So the good news there is I just looked at the poll, and 2024 is still 4 years away, but we already have 76% of the respondents that say they already heard or know about low code. And we should do a follow-up question, who has already been doing it, and not just hearing and learning about it, but doing it. We'll do that in a minute to see how those two relate to each other. But we have a little bit more time to be part of that 65% of application development, right?
Exactly, that's the main point. By 2024, all application development that we will be using and interacting on a daily basis will be already done using a low code. So it's here to stay, and you should embrace it as the next step of developing applications. How can you start if you still haven't done it? So if you're still in that phase of, I've heard about it, as Ton just said, one of those 76%, I've heard about it, I've read about it, but I'm not using it yet. My question and Ton's question was, why not? So we are proposing here 3 very simple steps for you to start doing. First of all, find the need that you have inside your organization for some fast development. For sure, there are some things that, due to the circumstances right now, due already to the nature of your business, that you need to have something in the market very fast. So identify that business solution that you need to be developed, either mobile, web, both, that integrates with your back office, whatever the solution is. I'm sure that low code can handle it. Then select a low code technology. There are several, we will talk about it, that is aligned with your budget, with your objectives, with your IT landscape. If you prefer this type of rent to that type of rent, you will find it. And then choose also a business partner that has proven experience implementing that, because that will make it faster and more definitely assuring quality. And then at the same time, you will have the possibility of training your own employees in your organization. So, as I was mentioning, who are the players in the market in terms of low code? This is just a small example of the players that are out there. Okay, there are plenty more solutions that can integrate you to this low code thing. But you have companies like Mendix, OutSystems, APN, BettyBlock, Salesforce, Raisin, Power Apps, App Maker from Google, Power Apps is from Microsoft, QuickBase, ZooCreator. So there are several technologies. You can also see it in a different way, where Gartner again presents it in their Magic Quadrant, where they positions this software as who is the market leaders in terms of offering the best solutions to enterprise low-code application platforms, meaning that this is the players that are more aligned with what the companies, large organizations need. Same if you don't like the Magic Quadrant and you prefer the Wave from Forrester, they give you also a good indication who are the players and how you can address your problems using low-code. Again, you can ask now, but this low-code thing that you're talking about, what is it good for? How does it help my business? Or what type of business solution should I be looking for in my company? So the use cases for low-code can be digital operations. So streamline inefficient, manual, or even paper-based process that you have in your organization. It can be digital experiences. It can be engaging with your customers, CRMs, portals, business to consumer solutions that you need to implement. Digital core, so meaning that if you have legacy systems, core legacy systems that you need to reintroduce, that you have lost even touch with the guys that have developed those applications, and you need to redo it again, low code is definitely the solution. So coming again, if you need to have support integration requirements in a complex user interfaces, if you need to have pixel perfect user experiences with high quality on UX UI, or if you need scalability and security are your main concerns, definitely low code can help you. Low code platforms fit these needs.
Okay, so it's great news, and as you know, the content of this webinar is aimed at the financial industry.
Yeah,
there's lots of legacy laying around there, I would say, and an overdue need to update that with the current needs in business, and that's even digital transformation is now being accelerated through the whole COVID crisis.
Definitely. And financial institutions have been traditionally some of the most organizations that have gained from the low code. As Pedro will talk about next, you could see that has been a big impact on the financial way of working inside the organization.
And before we move to Pedro and your last slide, I see one of the questions is from Michel van der Poort, who's asking, wouldn't you also include RPA, so robotic programming applications? So the whole field, does this for you, is this part of low code, or do you see it as a different niche?
No, RPA are actually different niches. It's a different way of doing things, because there you're talking about more optimization of processes. Okay. But those are new trends that definitely can have areas that are common. Also, for example, business process management also comes a lot in contact with low code. So, but low code platforms normally are more integrated with the core systems, and normally are a little bit more broadened in terms of how they allow it. Just coming to my last slide.
Go ahead.
So some of the myths, very quickly.
Yes.
Some of the myths. So is low code really faster? Yes, there is no doubt about it. Okay, you need to try to see it. Is it low code in citizen development? Can low code be considered as citizen development? Yes, you have several platforms that allow a common citizen to develop their own applications and to start using them. So definitely you can do it. Can low code be used in large enterprises? Yes, low code was actually developed for large enterprises and should be. This is the main point of low code. And is low code low code the same as no code? The answer is no. Low code still has some coding and some developing that needs to be done, but the majority of the work is done visually. While no code means really no line of code is being written by someone.
Okay, so
this is just
you would say that the no code is more for standard things where you're not doing something unique, and that low code is something where you are really going to cater to your unique processes or user experience to make a USP or a difference towards existing platforms or applications?
Exactly, and especially if you need a lot of integrations with the existing systems, which is the case these days, where you cannot just build standalone applications, you need to integrate a lot. And normally integration means some line of codes need to be written for web services and things like this.
Okay, except if you go for the RPA plumbing, as it often is referred to. But I feel we're going to come back to that, and I appreciate all the people in the chat also continuing this discussion. We'll have an open Q&A at the end of the three presentations. We're now Cris, big thanks for this introduction. We're going to move on to Pedro with a real use case They've been building for one of the largest banks in Portugal. And so without further ado, I would say, Pedro, we're going to switch to you. And I haven't given a lot of introductions about who you are, but we have shared all the LinkedIn profiles at the beginning of this session. So I hope everybody can scroll back to those to see to check out your professional background if they're interested into that. So go ahead, share your screen, tell us maybe a little bit more about yourself, and then move into the business case.
Let's see if this change is smoother than the other one. Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, this is it.
So the share screen, yeah, there we go. Fine, that seems to work fine. If you go to the full view, it works. Go ahead.
Everything is fine over there. Okay. So,
yes, everything is perfect.
Okay, following the Cris presentation, I'm going to give you just a glimpse of a customer that we have, which is a good business case, and it's a bank in the financial, big bank in the Europe in the financial industry. So my name is Pedro Soeiro. I work with low code since 2007. Toon said that why don't we work with low code for longer than a long time, but as you can see, I was born in 2006 and I will start working with low code in 2007. So I work with it, I believe, forever. I'm partner of Ablewise Consulting, and I'm responsible for all the sales of the company. Okay, I would like to start with the fact that a great number of European banks are already using low code. And they are using one of those platforms that Cris showed in this presentation. Here in Portugal, because we have a major platform which is Portuguese and its OutSystems. Every single bank in Portugal right now has at least one project, a local project running. So it's a big deal here in Portugal, and all banks are taking it very seriously because it gives them much productivity and time to market that they have with all the laws and all the regulations stuff. They need to have something like this. So the bank I will use as an example is an institution that has more than 2,500 employees, more than 10 million customers, and they have physical presence in 11 countries. They have millions of daily transactions, and most of those millions of daily transactions are supported by some products built in low code with low code solutions. So I would say that they start using low code in 2012, and the initial challenge when they came to us was to implement two solutions: a credit collection solution and a loan management.
Okay.
The problem is that they only had 6 months to implement each solution. And there was a major risk in this timeline for the project, which was the integration with the core system of that bank.
Okay, so I'm going to interrupt you. One
of course.
We have two interesting questions that came up, and I want to invite everybody who's not talking. So we're not expecting the speaker to multitask on this, but maybe Cris already wants to answer Typhon, who's asking to name the top 5 local platforms. They were on your slide, but it's nice to have them there too. And we have another question that other people can chip into as well, which is why exactly is there no application agent? Yeah, so that's the 2 very good questions. Thank you for those asking them. We'll continue here. And I interrupted you, so you were on the 6 months tragic. How far before Christmas was the question coming in? I'm just kidding, referring to Cris here, but what was the deadline?
by Christmas it was done.
Okay, very good. Happy Christmas for that year. Okay,
Yeah.
Go ahead. The floor is yours.
So why do they choose a low-code platform? Well, in this case, the products that they chose to go with were Creditbox and CollectionBox, which were already developed over OutSystems platform. So it was like an accelerator that we have here to fulfill the timeline that they had in mind. And our secret weapon at that time was the ability to integrate pretty much everything with the OutSystems platform. And that just also, we confirmed that in this project. So the project was running in 6 months, and this was the beginning of a great success story. So I will give you a timeline what happened after this, because it's build two systems in one bank. It's nice. It was very good, but the important is that that bank kept working with a platform and kept doing major projects in the bank. So I'm going to give you just a glimpse of what happened from 2012 until now. And we started with the collections box, which was the first project that we made. And just for you to understand the difference, the best contender proposed 18-month project. Okay, so no one believed that 6 months was possible, and because the complexity of the solution, and we just did it. And because we did it, we started the Creditbox, which also had 6 months. And the best contender to do the project was 12-month project in other technology with some products that are already in the market also. Just for you to know, as you can see from 2012 until now, because both of these solutions are still used by the bank and are considered core systems in the bank, because they support most of their business on loaning and also on collecting. Okay, so after that, it was proven that the technology was the best technology for that moment and for the implementations that they wanted to do. Was started another project which was a CRM. This was a bigger challenge, because we had to integrate with more systems than the core banking. So it was a much more complex project. So it took us 9 months to build, and the best contender proposed 24-month project. So we were always ahead of our contenders. That's why they kept building things with the platform, OutSystems platform. After that, in 2015, there happened something very curious. It was that the bank wanted to create some people there, and they start to build internal apps. Because our RMs were full with the collection box and the credit box, which, as you can imagine, are very demanding solutions, because the business is always evolving, and they're always asking for new features. Also, the regulators and the legislation must be updated. So we put a team, is still working, this team, building and maintaining some internal apps, like the invoicing, the HR system, the document management, etc. And after that, the bank wanted to build project to their online payments, and okay, there was a doubt that if OutSystems would be the technology to follow. It's a very complex system with a lot of integrations with third parties all over the world. So, but they were they were not that sure that this would be the system, but then we convinced them that yes, it is proven to be also the best system to work with this project, because we already we started in 2018 and we already have 5 countries in production already using the system, and it's a project, a 5-year project that will end in 2023. And the goal is to have 20 different countries using this system. So it's a very important project for this bank. Other projects are in the backlog. So this will not end here because the platform is already a major asset of the company to build new systems and to maintain them. So this is just for you to have a glimpse of what happened and how a bank could create multiple systems, complex systems with a low-code platform, in this case, OutSystems platform.
Okay, I think these use cases will feel very familiar for people working in banking and financial industry by extension. So yeah, it's quite impressive. You've been doing so many of them in such a consecutive order. Why low code on these? Because you could have approached them in a classic waterfall development with getting requirements and then translated into the more technical specifications, and then take them module by module, doing the full architecture first and then going into it. What's so different when you do the low code approach?
Well, what happened is in those times, now it's easy for us to sell the low code concept. Those times, 2012, the low code concept didn't exist at the time. It was low code then, or is low code now, but in those days, what we were talking about is about agile projects. That was the key word for this kind of projects. And the main difference between low code and waterfall, we used to do it before 2007, before I was born. Yeah. that took too long. The problem is the projects took too long, and the teams were really bigger. And one thing that you have with these low-code platforms is that the level of the consultants, it's blurred by the platform. When you are working in a project like Java or .NET, if you have a super senior guy and a junior guy, the difference between them is clear, and sometimes the senior guy must redo a lot of work that the junior guy does. The teams that we use in low code are more leveled. The platform can level them, so it's very easy for the junior guys to understand how to work with the senior, and very easy for a senior to join a junior guy in the team. So I believe this is one of the big differences that low-code projects have right now with the right platforms, because we also tried some platforms that weren't that efficient, but with OutSystems, we keep using OutSystems, and it's perfect for this. In this particular case, we had the luck that we had the products already developed, so it was very fast for us to join the fast track of our developed products, and already having the platform that could use us to do the rest really fast, like the integration with the core banking. So I believe at those times we somehow have had some luck to convince the customer to go this way. But right now it's very easy for us to sell low-code solutions and low-code projects.
And did PSD2 help
it's
you? Because I see you keep aligned with new legislation. Of course, things went relatively quickly when PSD2 was introduced and discussed.
Yes.
To which extent did that impact you or your customer?
That's one of the main issues that we have with this kind of projects using local platforms in the banks, is that the legislation and the regulators, they don't give you much time to implement the laws and the regulations that they put up in the bank. So this gives the bank a very they keep these platforms as very secure to follow all the procedures and all the regulations and all the legislation in time, and that's very important for a bank right now.
So you're among the happy suppliers of a bank with these strict deadlines and this ever-changing regulatory burden that they put on the bank.
Well, banks. But as you can imagine, banks are good customers because of all the changes that the business demands all over a year. A year is a very demanding. They are very demanding changes each month, each week sometimes.
Okay, great. Shall we move on?
This was just to finish.
Yep.
Just to finish the why low code. Well, I'm just going on top of Cris' presentation, but just to give you why low code in this case, in this particular case. As I told you, it's allow to create full integrated solutions in matter of months or even weeks sometimes. Deliver really faster. Time to market. That's what we are talking about all the legislation and all the business that I need to put a new product or a new business in the market really fast, and this is the ideal solutions and the ideal platforms to use. I don't. My previous experience, I wasn't that. I couldn't keep customers as satisfied as I keep it now. Okay.
Wow, that's good to hear.
Okay, innovate and integrate with no limits. That's very important, because we can innovate. We can innovate and well, the customer, the demands of the customers, we have no limits to them, and the integrations also, we, at least until now, we couldn't find anything that we couldn't integrate with. Even legacy and old technologies that we can find, sometimes you have to integrate with AS400 and IBMs, and we have no problem with that. And then the ability to keep up to date with legislation and regulators.
Okay. We already discussed that one, I think, but indeed, that's okay.
Okay, it's not too much referring this, because this is I believe this is also almost the key for each bank to use platforms like this.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. The learned lessons you had in this large European bank. If you could maybe stop sharing your screen, because we're going to move on to Willem right away from Drebbel. But before we do that, I want to repeat to people that you can use the chat and show your expertise or ask you questions. We do ask you not to put your personal LinkedIn profile in there, as you understand. This is about exchanging information, and we do that for the speakers, but be conscious of the flow and the other people following this. You can check out who else is watching this in the People tab on the top right side to have an idea. And I see there's lots of consultants who are also interested in seeing how others have pulled off their low-code magic at the banks and the financial institutions. So Willem, with this we go to you. I know you're going to bring us the case of a large Belgian bank. Of course, you can't name which one, but it's one of the 4 larger ones, or can I ask that much?
It is indeed one of the top 4 banks in Belgium.
Okay.
I'm going to tell a story, a fairy tale, as a matter of fact, a little story.
We like those.
Yes, it sounds like a fairy tale, but it is a real story. Out of my cage here, as a Minister of Health uses to call it, my cot. And what I'm going to talk about is about a word that's not fallen this time, and it's quite uncommon. Normally, the word data is mentioned a lot of times. Now it hasn't been mentioned at all, but I think it's the fuel of all those fancy applications that can be configured in low code or no code environment. So I'm going to talk about the data by a story, and I will now share my screen.
As you know, my own startup is called Data.be, so I really don't mind you talking about data, but go ahead, let's not get sidetracked here. I'm very curious about your tale now, even more than before.
Do you see my screen?
Yes, we do. Yes.
Ah, great. Okay. Well, yeah, thanks for having me here out of my cot. And the story starts about 2 years ago. As many stories start, it was at a reception, having a glass of wine, talking to the head of corporate banking of one of the top 4 banks in Belgium, asking him, as a good salesman is supposed to ask, what are your troubles? What's on your mind? And I didn't get any answer until we had 2 more glasses, and then this guy started talking. And what he told me was that he had a really big issue. Time when one of his account managers was asked to create a so-called 360 degrees view on one of their corporate clients, it was a big challenge. It took them 6 weeks to get a so-called up-to-date report. And why was that? Because corporate clients, they had data they were, of course, in Belgium. They had data out of Belgium. They had it in different systems. Banks do have different products, credits, cash, leasing, you name it. So it was a big challenge. And the real challenge was, of course, that, and that's not been named here, and it's a general challenge. Very often, the most difficult problem in starting to build applications is finding and getting the right data in the applications. And up till then, finding that data and getting it together caused a lot of hassle, a lot of time, a lot of IT work, and a lot of coding. So I took that challenge on board and talked to one of our technology partners, which is Fraxis, who uses Drebbel services for bringing them to market, and explained the challenge. And they said, yes, we can find something. We can deliver something very quickly in less than a week's time. And everybody we told it to said, this is very nice. This is really too good to be true, because in our bank, it's really old-fashioned. It's only really legacy. Very difficult to get to the data, and data is of really crap quality. And on this slide, you see the different inputs that they provided. You can see Twitter, very old IBM DB2, a few Oracle databases, a lot of spreadsheets, Outlook. So there was also non-structured data they wanted to include, and a lot of CSV files. And what they really wanted to achieve was a real-time view on all the business the bank did with corporate clients, even if they had relationships with international offices and so on. Just in one click, they wanted to see everything there was to see about the client. And by preference, it would be on their click visualization tool. If we could do that, that would be ideal. So what did we do? We sent someone to Brussels who started loading some software on a few servers. Once that was done, the first thing to do was discover the data. So find out which is the data, which are the data sources, gather all the information, all the metadata about it. And on top of that, also discover all the relationships, because as you would expect, data sitting in one silo didn't have the same structure nor the same customer IDs as in other systems. So that was completely automatically done. Once all the data was gathered and all the information was gathered and we had all the metadata, then we could start configuring the output based on all the data that was available. And then the last step was to deliver all the data in a structured, harmonized format to the Click View application for visualizing. This whole thing took no more than 4 days. 4 days of work for Access, which went along with about 14 days for the bank, not because they had so much time they needed to, or so much people they needed to involve. They did, but it was just it was just the way people didn't even know who was a data owner and so on. So we had to really discover within the bank who we had to talk to finally, just to get everything done in the 4 days. Fortunately, this was only once. We had to take that time and find all the data, because once it was done, everything was stored in the system and just available for the future. This is a page. It's really no code, not low code, but really not low code, but no code. Everything could be configured, as you can see here. And suddenly, they only didn't have all the data available, but also the pedigree of the data lineage. So also from a compliance perspective, this was a very strong tool to use. Don't worry, I want to show you that there's a really very complex engine behind all this. It's a lot of systems, a lot of modules, but the outcome is basically very simple. It's getting all the data from the different sources and make it, harmonize it, bring it together, configure it, and provide the output as required by the client in a few days.
Okay, that's very impressive. And maybe for other people that tuned in, you and your business partner, you are like the in-between door opener, a facilitator for many other startups that are trying to sell into the financial industry. Would that be a good summary of what you're doing?
That's a perfect summary, Toon.
Okay, so then I have another question for you. It's a little bit deviating from this subject, and the other speakers can activate their cameras too. That would be like, how do you sell in times of a pandemic? Because as many of us are struggling with reaching customers and selling our services to people we haven't met before, what would you suggest as an experienced door opener and closer to change your sales methods in these tough times?
That's a very good question, Toon. Thank you very much. And I think it may be a cliche, but I think it's like that. The basis for selling into a community is knowing the community and being known by the community.
Okay.
So for someone who really tries to go into a market with a new product, into a new market, not being known, I think it's extremely difficult. It's already difficult in no Corona times, because you need to contact people, you need to build some sort of relation which is sufficient to get a meeting. So that's quite tough. In these days, today, it's even more tough, because at the end of the day, you establish a relationship in a face-to-face environment, much more than remote. It's only when you have this mutual relationship, like with your friends. Once you know your friend very well, it doesn't matter whether you see him or her face to face. You can give a call, a Skype, whatsoever. But getting to that stage, it's a challenge.
So that's very bad news for the fintechs that are launching now, because they didn't have time in pre-Corona times to establish this direct contact, the human side of it.
That's right, but I have a good advice. Yes. Then use people to help you who have those relationships.
Good, very good. We did see under the very subtle message you gave there, Willem, but it's much appreciated. And I noticed that we have people from well-established brands, so that's IBM, on this act. So they must be very well positioned because they have like decades longs of very big contracts and contacts going. So I can only assume that for them it's easier to keep going and keep selling under those large framework contracts as well. How do you manage from Portugal to serve your customers across Europe? And maybe a second question, how hard is this hitting your industry as subcontractors and developers to large established financial institutions? So maybe Cris, Cris or Pedro, go ahead. You pick who wants to go first.
Cris.
Okay.
Go ahead, Pedro.
Okay, Cris, go ahead. Okay. Here in Portugal, Portugal as a country is a physical very similar to Belgium in most of the small countries in Europe, and it's the experience of Willem is the same as I am having here, because we only can deal with the guys that knows us, that already have business with us, and all having new customers right now is very difficult for the guys like me and Willem that already have big experience in the market and we know a lot of people. It's already difficult for us. For us, the newcomers, it's going to be a tough. I hope this will pass very soon, because the next few months are going to be difficult for everybody, and even more for those guys.
Okay, now maybe Cris, if we go to
the problem,
is it helping you in the low-code perspective that you say this is another element why a crisis can be a reason to act now and move to this methodology?
Definitely. I mean, going into the cliches that Willem said, but definitely crises are opportunities. There is no doubt about it, and I think this is a good time for organizations to rethink the way they are doing and developing their projects. If you allow me, I can even show you one of the slides that I had where I was mentioning exactly that.
Okay, and while you look up the slide, I will yeah, okay,
which was exactly that low code can actually help in this moment. Okay, and it's a perfect opportunity for you guys that have new needs in terms of developing applications or solutions that need to come to the market very fast, either related to the coronavirus or related to the impact that it's causing, or even considering that there are platforms that are making it free, the software, to develop your solution. So this makes it really interesting in terms of cost efficiencies for you guys to
check. It would be really great if you could share one of those free, temporarily free platforms in the chat session, so that everybody can check them out on their own time. And there is another good question from Erik van der Meers, who's asking, this is a question that all three of you can take, what type of methodology do you provide to the customer, and does it depend on the platform you're using? So I don't know who wants to...
I can say, normally the methodology, we're always going for agile these days.
Yeah.
Okay,
but that's it's a very broad, it's a well-known.
But we always go for minimum available product. I think that's the way you should start using low code. Define a minimum available product, something that you can put in the market right away to be used, and on top of that, then start making small increments, either new features or correcting and adapting your system to what the market is giving you, what the customers or what the users are telling you. Because the low code actually enables you to make mistakes and learn from those and implement. And it's not very costly to have those, because the update and the changes are implemented very fast.
Okay, and how do you refer, Willem, to the methodology when you bring in your customers into banks and fintechs? How do you approach this with them? And do you see a difference in those two parties, how a bank approaches a transformational project or a new MVP, and how a fintech approaches that?
Yes, and a bank by definition is already a very difficult institution to sell to, and the question is where you get in. As a fintech, most often you get in through an innovation department or innovation vertical, whatever they call it, which is very nice, and you find a very pleasant audience and interested people and excited people, and you can go quite far in innovation. But the big challenge is when a a project is moved from innovation into the, call it, traditional bank. So when you talk to traditional IT and business, and then it suddenly becomes quite a challenge, because then you start fighting the preoccupations of a lot of people. Sometimes, certainly when you're in a low or no code environment, you start threatening people's jobs. There's a lot of people who are developers and coders and who see a threat to their activities. So then it becomes, just a very, very complex job, very complicated. And the only thing you can do, and that's what we always do, is try to influence the decision makers. Of course, that's quite obvious, but also try to influence the influencers and try to work on the people who indirectly are stakeholders of a project. And that's just a big work, because certainly in a big bank, there's a lot of people, a really hell of a lot of people. So it's all about relationships, all about massaging people, trying to bring new ideas, and yeah.
I like the massaging people. I don't want to imagine what that looks like through a Zoom or a Teams equivalent, but I'll take the mental bridge.
Yeah, it's very awkward, but it works.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Willem. Now we have lots of I would say polls going and questions out there. One of the things that I quickly want to point out is that when we go back to low code now, I do want to ask everybody to maybe suggest to us in a poll what are the next topics. You can just suggest other ones through the chat. But tomorrow we have one coming up on cybersecurity. It's going to be both the academic view and more hands-on tips there, because we got a lot of questions about companies. This is also a good time to address that. And as you've probably heard, like popular tools for home working like Zoom, they also got I would say exposed as being very vulnerable both on Mac OS and Windows OS. So even if you're very successful now in selling into corporates, there is a cybersecurity should not be neglected. We have people asking us how to sell as a fintech in a pandemic. As we quickly touched upon that. We are thinking about doing one on marketing and finding the delicate balance about making offers that adhere to the crisis, but not being like a fearmonger or making abuse of this horrible pandemic that's going on. And then cash planning, I think many fintechs will need that. Many of them were still working at a loss and needing to raise cash, which has become extremely hard in these conditions. So yeah, if you have other suggestions, feel free to chip in, and I will now launch that these topics I already mentioned now in the poll section. We have questions, and I see we're having a tough time in answering the questions online, so I will just read them out. Is the app that runs on a centralized data center resilient? How do you resolve the issues about scalability, transparency, and immutability? So maybe a question to Pedro. How in the projects you've done that were large scale, how do you address these scalability, transparency, and immutability?
Well, because we use OutSystems platform, which is a very mature platform, and already they deliver to their partners all these white sheets and all these best practices that we must have when we implement a project. We try to follow all the methodologies, and all the information is given for us by and that's how we solve it. We don't of course, when you go to a bank, sometimes we have to deal with the inside rules of that particular bank. So we have to match this and make it like a reasonable thing to both ways, and that's how we deal with it. It's case by case. It's not a done deal. We go there and we try to okay, this is how we do it, and you have to. It's difficult to do that in a bank, so we have to go that with the idea of our used by our platform, and how we do the best practices that we use, and then try to match them with the guys in the customer. That's but it's not a closed thing that we have. It's something that we deal with each customer.
Okay, another question. I got a lot of support.
but we don't. We until now we didn't have any problem.
And then something else that people are asking themselves, and
those
Bruno van der Kastelen raised it, why exactly is there no application aging if you use low code? Because like the underlying modeling of the application, the data models, they might change the legal needs. So how do you address this concern? Like it was expressed that there's no application agent. How do you make it evolve with the changing needs? Maybe Cris, if you want to address that one.
Yeah, I can address that one. I mean, the main thing is that since the platforms, since the low-code platforms are aligned with evolving with the business itself, it means that every time you have new requirements, you redo a part of the system. So in fact, you are actually upgrading your system as you are actually doing it. The platforms itself, the softwares that support your application, they also suffer upgrades, but the functional side of your application, which is usually what gets behind, it's the functional part, it's always being updated, because since it's so easy to develop new features and to do changes, you're always updating the system. So the aging doesn't actually happen, because the solution that you start developing today will be very different from the one that you will have in 5 years. And maybe some of the features will already not be being used, with the data, of course, being there and saving the history.
Okay. Thank you for that answer. Willem, you wanna continue on that? Or do I go to the next question?
There's nothing I can add.
There's a question from Nigel Lal, who's asking, like, yeah, this seems, if you have low coding skills, then these platforms still seem very advanced. So in the introduction, we talked about no code, zero code. So I think if you are a non-coder and you want to get your prototypes up and running, you should probably look at those first. And then maybe, but again, Cris, maybe if you want to take that one.
I mean, of course, that people listen. Low code, it's still developing. Okay.
So you would say it's early stage of maturity, despite us having a teenager, Pedro, on stage who's been doing it all his life.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that you still need to have the background of developing to start developing, but it's definitely faster, and you will learn it faster. And different people with different backgrounds find it easier to develop than on the traditional development solutions.
Okay, that's great. Super. Thanks for that, Willem.
Yeah, from my perspective, from the data perspective, I think it can be done rather by analysts than by developers.
Okay.
So I think it's a way, and probably we talk about low code, and I think we evolve towards no code, in which case I see it as the business taking back the power in the banks. I think for the last decades, the banks have been managed by IT people rather than by business
I must inform you, all the IT people just left the room. So I'll just say that Daniel Verbruggen asked a question, which is the perfect intro for the next part of your sentence. Does low code require more specialized pre-knowledge development compared to traditional development? So let's go back to business and IT. I like the split you made there.
Yeah. No, I think there's an opportunity now for the business to really take charge of the banks again, where IT is, of course, something you absolutely need, but it should serve the bank, and it's not the other way around. It shouldn't not be the business who serves the IT. And I think low code, no code makes that possible.
Yeah.
Okay, so you see them as facilitating a power shift between who's really driving the projects, and in no code, IT can't say no. Is that something that that we could put?
Yeah, well, I had a conversation not so long ago with the CEO of one of the top 4 banks in Belgium, and I asked him in his position as a CEO, when he wants to implement, and compliance, for instance, is a very important element, and they are all fighting, they are all having issues with providing reporting and so on as required by the regulators. And I asked him the question, yes, from your perspective, as you are not an IT, you're a businessman, a banker, how can you determine when you ask something to your CIO and say, look, I need this and this and this, and his answer is impossible, cannot be done. And maybe someone else comes to you and says, it can be done. How do you handle that? he said, yeah, it's just like my children at home. Sometimes I listen to one, and then the other time I listen to the other. And I just try to do whatever I think is best. But indeed, it's a challenge.
Okay. We're about to wrap up this session because we want to be respectful to everybody's time and the scheduling they gave this in their agendas. The chat is still open for a few more minutes. I would also say do fill in the polls on the upcoming subjects because we really would like to know what the next type of subject is you would like us to cover. I see a lot of answers on how to sell as a fintech in a pandemic. 56% would like to know that. I think we, as fintechs, all suffer from this at the moment, and we're a little bit in panic mode. Like, wow, how are we gonna brace for impact before we have less unknowns as we have today? And this, of course, is true for many people in the industry. So that's definitely something. I will use this also as a call to action. 9% is indicating that cybersecurity is something that they are really looking into and that they would like to know more about. Tomorrow at 2 o'clock again, we have yet another free webinar, really top level. And you see the pop-up there, Caroline, thanks for that, because I didn't touch anything on my side here. So tomorrow at 2 p.m. you can go to that seminar if you like this format. We try to make it as interactive, and as we get more used ourselves to Livestorm, which is the platform provider of this interactive webinar, we'll get better at it and hopefully even more interactive in the near future. So tune in tomorrow for cybersecurity, and I will take a last round in the chat to see if there's a last question that somebody wants to address here. Let's have a quick look. We already have the thank yous from the people who have been with us. I take a last quick run at the questions. There is another one from Typhoon. Is the app that runs on centralized data center infrastructure resilient? And how do we resolve the issues? I think we've already answered that before, so this came back in my list here. So we're not going to go for that one. It was answered before. I think we have answered all the questions as far as I can see. We start getting the thanks yous in the question as well. So thank you, Gerda, for that one. To the 35 people who stayed till the very end, we thank you and we greet you, and we look forward meeting many others tomorrow. And I thank our 3 speakers for the insights they shared with us, the cases. And keep safe, everybody. Take good care of yourself during this crisis. Take good care of your families, and we hope to see each other back in face-to-face. And Caroline, thank you for being with us and being behind the platform to make sure that all the questions and chat are running smoothly. See you tomorrow for those that will join us, and at the next session for those who are not interested in cybersecurity. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.